Welcome back to the YouTube channel. I am Ryan. This is Michigan Storm Chasers. We have lake effect snow continuing across our typical lake effect belts here. As you can see on radar, much of the lake shore by Holland, Muskegon, Grand Haven, South Haven, getting some moderate to heavy snowfall bands here. Further north up in northern lower, we have a couple of these moderate to heavy snow bands from Traverse City towards Roscommon and Gaylord areas. Up in the UP, the radar is not the best at depicting where snow is falling, but we still have a lot of places up there from Marquette to Munising in on this lake effect snow. This is the last day we expect this to become an issue in terms of the current forecast. Speaking of the forecast, we have a forecast package put together for you today. Let's go ahead and dive right on into this. So, snow comes to an end. Hazardous cold is gone. The key points today. Lake effect snow comes to an end. We'll go over what to expect here in just a second. Number two, we are entering a quote unquote warmer pattern here. It's not going to be 50s, but it will feel like a warm up with the hazardous cold moving out of the area. An active pattern is incoming. We'll show you guys that here in just a second. And then also number four, long-term discussion, what to expect into the early part of February. We'll talk about a little bit about that, but I think we're going to do a separate video discussing the long-term pattern specifically. So we'll do that tomorrow, I think, but we'll touch on it just a bit. So let's go ahead and move into the current forecast package. So current alerts out there, we have multiple winter weather advisories and also two counties under winter storm warning, Grand Traverse and Kalkaska up there in northern lower. Otherwise, our typical West Michigan lake effect belts are in on the winter weather advisories. So additional snowfall is expected through the day today. Speaking of the additional snowfall, what to expect according to the model, we're seeing just a few inches picking up there across much of West Michigan. Some areas could see a little bit higher banding, especially in those like darker purples and pink areas up there by that Grand Traverse, Kalkaska County area, as well as up there in the UP by just east of Marquette there and also near the Grand Marais areas. So this is not going to be a heavy snow today, but it will cause some travel issues out there. It already is causing travel issues out there with multiple accidents. Honestly, probably this morning was probably one of the most accidents I've seen on the drive map. So it did cause issues overnight tonight, as we did have widespread snow across the state here. The forecast, this is actually the old graphic here. I didn't load the new graphic in, but we did have a good chunk of Michigan in a 1 to 3 plus zone here where that aqua shade is. It was actually 1 to 3. I'm not sure why I didn't upload the graphic in here or the updated graphic in here. So my apologies about that. But overall, snow's going to wrap up today. Slick roads are out there, so take it easy if you're traveling. And let's move into the temperature forecast here. Past 4 days, we've been dealing with very, very cold temperatures over the course of about 72 straight hours. But now with today, as of the making of this video, Thursday, we are in the 20s, or going to be in the 20s very soon for a large portion of Michigan. Notice up there in Western UP, though, they're naturally colder. They don't have the lake protection like Lake Michigan gives us. But overall, I do think that the overall temperature for you guys is going to feel much more pleasant this time around. It's going to continue that way. Looking at the 15-day forecast based out of the Lansing area, we're seeing upper 20s and low 30s for the majority of the 15-day period. We have 2 more days, really, you can say, of colder temperatures. But overall, the consensus here is a much warmer pattern or much more seasonal pattern is developing and will be here to stay. Now, looking at the models, there could be a cool down. You might notice it here in the middle of the graph around the very last couple days of January, like the 29th, 30th, 31st. We could be looking at a little bit of a, not going to say an Arctic blast, but more so of a cool down there, perhaps into the low 20s. This model is not as aggressive with this, but I do want to note some models do show a little bit of a cool down there for the end of January, perhaps to start the February timeframe. Now, going into the future, though, the overall warmer, quote unquote, warmer pattern is supported by the CPC, having the entirety or most of the entirety of the Midwest in near normal or above average probabilities for above average temperatures. Michigan there is near normal, and that would be right on par here going back to that temperature graph. Our average is right around 29 30 degrees there. So this will be right on par, leaning just a bit above average. We are seeing some signs we could see a couple days in the mid to upper 30s, perhaps even 40 a couple of these days. But overall, a much more pleasant pattern is developing. Going back to our latest snow forecast that was valid for Wednesday and today, this is the updated forecast. I got loaded in here real quick. That is the final forecast we had. We had 1 to 3 there from the thumb all the way back through Jackson, Coldwater, and along Lake Michigan. 6 to 12 is the expectation when all is said and done at the end of today. So feel free to pause it and look through if you wanted to get some more info on it. But that was the updated forecast. I did not want to leave you guys with an old graphic there, so I got loaded in there pretty quickly. Now, in terms of the future, what are we going to expect in terms of the long term? Any big systems coming up? Any temperature pattern changes into February, stuff like that. So let's go ahead and dive into the main point I want to make with the future, and that is an active pattern is looking to be setting up very nicely here. So this is I'm going to call it a 6-panel of the European model, and I ran it over the next 360 hours. So when you get past, we're going to say 200 or so hours, it becomes what we call fantasy land. That's when models may have a system really far out, but there's very little confidence in it. But I do want to take note, the next upcoming 7 to 10 days or so is going to feature a wide variety of Alberta Clipper systems or like systems. What those are quick hitting systems that form in Alberta, Canada, or around that area, and they move south-southeast, and those do usually impact Michigan, especially northern portions of Michigan, with a couple inches of snow. If you notice here, top left, our next chance at a Clipper system is going to be run around that Saturday, Sunday time frame, which is in about 3 or 4 days. This is Thursday, so fast forward to Saturday, Sunday. Now going to next week, we're talking Monday, Tuesday, another system looks to move through, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, yet another system moves through. And then we get kind of later in the week toward that Thursday, Friday timeframe. This is when the confidence kind of tanks a little bit. But I will say the overall pattern remains active. Another Clipper system says it moves through there, again, for northern Michigan. And then we go into fantasy land past 200 hours out into next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend. We're talking like February 2nd, that time frame. It has a synoptic system that kind of moves up into the Midwest, into the Northeast area. We'll keep an eye on that. Both models, both major GFS and European models, do show a system around that time frame, but again, it's going to shift around a lot. We're not going to lock anything in. And then go further in advance into like the very, very fantasy land long term. The systems just do not stop. So the overall takeaway, what I'm trying to say here is the next 7 to 10 days will probably be more so quiet for southern Michigan for snow lovers, but we could see a couple systems that try to drop an inch or so at times, but Clipper systems will remain up north. So if you're further north in Michigan, perhaps some good accumulations, when all said and done, 3 or 4 Clipper systems could amount to, 5, 6, 7 inches of snow. So it could be impactful for areas further north, but if you're wanting a big snow system further south, I'm going to say currently there's nothing imminent, but the long term does remain active, and it would support the overall pattern of some more systems. Now, going into just briefly mentioning into February here, I don't have a graphic pulled up for this, but I will say the February timeframe, the first half of the month is trending kind of near normal to below average in terms of temperatures. And again, we're kind of starting to warm back up as we move into February and March. Our temperatures are kind of starting to hit that dip, and then they're kind of coming back up into the low 30s here. So we'll have to keep an eye on what that February timeframe is going to bring for us, because it could be a rain snow mix with those types of systems, or if we can trend a little bit cooler than average, we could be looking at snow systems. Right now, the models do say we're trending below average, but I want to save that future discussion for a separate video dedicated to it. So I'll do that probably late tonight and publish it tomorrow for you guys on how February is currently looking. Overall, the consensus is cold is gone. Well, I'm not going to say gone, but the hazardous cold is gone. Lake effect snow wraps up today, and we're left with a little bit more of a pleasant pattern here to end our January. With that being said, I'm going to hop out of here. Before I do, shout out to today's sponsor of the video. We're going to go with Katz Roofing and Siding, based out of the Potterville area, which is near Lansing. 517-485-9886. They do roofing, siding, window, and gutter needs on your homes. With that being said, I'll catch you guys later. Stay safe, travel safe. We'll see you guys at the next video.